Good evening. I'd like to call to order the April 8th, 2025 meeting of the Norwalk Common Council. If you'll please rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our nation's flag, and also if you'll remain standing after the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I just was informed at some point today that former superintendent of schools, Ralph Sloan, has passed away. Many of us knew him. He was not only a giant of a man physically, but a giant of a man because of who he was and what he did. He was well received. He loved our children and our school system, loved dedicating his life to helping raise all vessels equally. Really a good man. We extend our condolences to his family, to Catherine Sloan Snedeker, who is his daughter. And if you would just join me in a moment of silence. There will be a celebration of life on the third floor at some point next week, because if you go up to the third floor and you see all those wonderful artist renderings from the students, that's his gallery. So thank you. Clerk, if you please call the roll.
We'll begin with.
Gotta write your name down.
Present.
Mr. Goldstein,
Here.
Mr. Lopez,
Present.
Ms. Najilski Eicher. Present. Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Ayers. She online?
No.
Oh, she's. Mr. C,
Present.
Mr. Wiggins,
Here.
Ms. Young. Here. Ms. Edie. Here. Ms. Winterstrand. Here. Ms. Dunn. Here. Mr. Sutton.
Present.
Mr. Frere.
Here.
Ms. Shanahan. Here.
14 present, we have quorum. Next item on the agenda, acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of March 25th, 2025. Ms. Shanahan.
Move to accept them.
I'm sorry,
Move to accept them.
any corrections, deletions, or omissions? Ms. Dunn?
Yeah, there are some comments that I think Nora made about a grant writer and stuff. Everything's attributed to me, I think was Nora.
Any other corrections, deletions, or omissions?
There.
Yes, Mr. Goldstein.
I forgot what page it's on because I don't have it right in front of me, but I'm pretty sure they referred to me as Mr. Goldberg instead of Goldstein. And while I'm a big fan of the Mighty Ducks, that is unfortunately not my name. So I hope that it gets corrected.
Any other corrections? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as corrected? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have public participation. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to address the council? Seeing none, is there anybody online?
Yes, we have one person, Diane Loricella.
Okay.
All members of the public have 3 minutes to speak. They'll be notified where 30 seconds remaining.
Good evening. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair? Madam President, rather. Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. For the record, my name is Diane Loricella, 21 Little Fox Lane. Tonight for the council, I'm mainly discussing in the 3 minutes I have, the capital budget under the East Economic and Community Development Committee, but also land use and building management. So first, I wanted to say that I would ask that you give a roll call vote for the item related to the capital budget. There still are too many wants, not needs, such as fleet replacement and other things I'll mention in a moment. we all in our households, especially with what's going on in Washington, have to tighten our belts and get ready for a rainy day, so to speak. But it appears that once again, this capital budget acts as if that is not the case. I don't feel you're listening to me, and I gave what I think are some pretty good ideas about trimming this budget. I still see too many wants. So we'll start out with the Finance Committee. While I do, of course, want the IT department to get more money to fix the website, this has been an ongoing discussion for years. This website that we have, while it has been slightly improved, is still not functional, and you all know it. And your predecessors knew it too. I hope that some of this $625,000 will go towards making the home page and this more word searchable that is actually a lot more user friendly. It is not. It still is not. It's not functional. Get rid of some of those dashboards to make way for special events and the capital budget. That would have been nice to have an easy thing to click on. I know that this mayor and this council wants to be striving for the greenest city, but you have a ways to go. So let's tone it down a bit unless and until you really look at some of these expenses. As I've said before, the Broad River Complex is $2 million is going to be given to them in addition to other millions that the taxpayers have put in a fund. The thing is,
30 seconds remaining.
you're spending it on artificial turf fields. And even though there is a discussion tomorrow, the memo that was written is a joke because it is not dated and the person that's writing it is not an expert on health. Lastly, on the Eversource 15 years under land use and building management, I think it is ridiculous that we are going to have 15 years of a fracked gas contract. And again, we're not looking at net zero schools, which I have tried to get Alan Lowe, Tom Livingston, Mr. Mayor, and all of you, especially the current chair of Land Use and Building Management, to take a look at alternatives to our faulty energy policy for renewables. Thank you for your
That's
time.
3 minutes.
Thank you. Anybody else virtually that wishes to address the council?
We have another person online. James M.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm a member of the ADA Disability Council here in Norwalk. It's run by Bill Nadia. And I wanted to emphasize the importance of funding for handicap and disability accessible places at City Hall and also the concert hall and the City Hall Drive curb ramps. Because I'm disabled and I find often in general it's hard to find accessible places in the area. So it would help me to get out of the house and to participate more in the community if there's adequate funding for people with physical disabilities like myself. I have muscular dystrophy and scoliosis and trouble walking. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. That's
There's
it.
no one else at this time. If anybody wishes to make a public comment, please raise your hand. It doesn't appear to be anybody else at this point in time, Mr. Mayor.
No one.
Okay. All right, we'll close public participation. Next on the agenda, resignations and appointments. We have a resignation from the Norwalk Commission on Gender Equity for Sarah Rendon Garcia. We certainly thank her for her service. Next, under mayor's remarks, This is National Autism Acceptance Month. It's Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. Last week, we had a ceremony on the Green with Secretary of State Stephanie Thomas, Senator Bob Duff, Representative Dominique Johnson, members of our council, and our Deputy Corporation Counsel, Jeff Spark. It's one of the things that we've been doing this for several years now, and I want to thank Jeff Spar for continuing to do it, is to bring awareness and educate people about people who are experiencing autism or people on the spectrum. And it doesn't define them. It's with education and treatment, they can live a life just as normal as anybody else. Also, this is Donate Life Month as well. Yesterday, we had a young lady named Nicole Heller who shared her story with us. In 2015, she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis and given 6 months to live. She received a double lung transplant from a person she only identified as Jordan. And she is vibrant, healthy, and alive. We had the meeting yesterday, or the conference yesterday, so that people would be aware of how they can donate organs if they pass. And it's a very simple thing. You can go online and it's, let's see what, I don't have it here, but you can go online and donate or sign up to donate. And the young man that spoke with her yesterday was a little bit of a surprise to us. They call him AJ, Andrew, I can't think of his last name. He's talking to us, and he had been the recipient, and he was probably 25, a recipient of a heart. So here are two people who are living on because of somebody else's gift, a gift of life. And it's quite impressive. So I just wanted to make that everybody understand or know that this is available, and that we have these young people, and it's just quite a nice thing. Also tomorrow, we're going to be holding a ribbon cutting for the Dreamy Hollow Neighborhood Project. Everybody's invited. As a coastal community, we know that flooding is a trouble and it's a major problem. And certainly with climate change, it continues to affect us in so many different ways. This is the biggest drain mitigation project in the city of Norwalk. It's undertaken in recent history. Its improved storm drainage and sanitary sewer lines will increase the stormwater drainage capacity in this neighborhood and reduce flooding in the area by over 22%. If you're familiar with the area, you know these neighbors have suffered quite a bit in that area. So this is going to be a really great thing for them. And I'm sure tomorrow a lot of the neighbors in that area will probably come out to join us. It's a $7 million project from the American Rescue Plan. And funds from the Norwalk Water Pollution Control Authority and the city's capital budget. And I want to thank Vanessa Valadares is here because none of this would have been possible without her, without Senator Duff, who brought in several $1 million for the project as well. This is also National Public Health Week. I want to recognize and thank the Norwalk Health Department and our public health workers for the important work they do, certainly every day in keeping our community safe. We'll be joining Health Director Deanna Diamore and Chief of Community Services Lamont Daniels at the Norwalk Health Department to recognize our public health workers with a proclamation on Friday morning at 10 p.m. If anybody wishes to join, by all means, feel free. Last but not least, if you were fortunate enough to be at home at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon and watch the UConn women absolutely crushed the University of South Carolina for the second time this year. The first time this year they lost. But this is really a particularly wonderful event because, as you know, Paige Beckers is in her 5th year. And she has been National Player of the Year, but never had a national championship. And with the help of Azzy Fudd and Sarah Strong, they took that championship, and it was a game that I could watch because for the first time they were ahead right from the beginning, and I was relaxed. I didn't get nervous. So again, congratulations to the UConn women's team. There's a parade on Saturday If anybody wants to know, we can, it's online as to where it starts and what time it starts and everything. So I now turn it over to the council president.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have the appointment of Kitty Sang on the Board of Ethics as a regular member. Do we have a motion? It's done.
Hi, I'd like to nominate Kitty. I've known her for a couple of years as a parent of one of my students at Norwalk High School, and she was really engaged and is very responsive to any request of any need. And I know that she'll bring that to the city as well as we bring anything forward that she might need. She's always eager to jump in and get involved. She's got a strong background in IT. She does a lot of IT work at home, so she does have some availability within the city. She also is very active in dancing. I think she has a pole in her hands. Yeah, seriously. And she does ballroom dancing and she plays the piano. She's kind of very multi-talented, so I'm really happy that she'll bring all of her talents and enthusiasm to the city.
Any other comments? I had the opportunity to speak with Kitty on the phone and, she shared some of those activities with me. Just terrific that she's so involved in so many things. And I'm just really grateful that, she is at a time in her life where she's able to step up and become involved. So we thank her for her willingness to step up. Unless there are any other comments, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? That is unanimous. Congratulations to Kitty. And then we have the reappointment of Michelle Sawyer to the Board of Ethics as a regular member. Do I have a motion for that? Ms. Wennerstring.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move Michelle Sawyer for reappointment to the Board of Ethics. I had the pleasure of working with Michelle because I was on the Board of Ethics for a time. She's been on the board for a full year. And this is a reappointment for a full term. She lives and works in Norwalk. She's incredibly involved, a very responsible position within Norwalk Hospital, running a navigators program for families and patients to sort of navigate the medical system. And she's a wonderful public servant, and I'm appreciative of her service.
Are there any other comments? Ms. Nadolski-Eichner.
I would just very briefly add that I had the pleasure of talking to Ms. Sawyer before she joined the Board of Ethics the first time around. And again, I really appreciated her understanding of what the role needed, her attention to detail, and her willingness to serve. And so I'm glad that she is going to be reappointed and will be serving with us for a full term.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that carries unanimously. Unless anyone has any objections, I'd like to switch the consent calendar and move forward with under general council business, the update for the Walk Bridge program. Okay, all right, so we have Vanessa Valadares here with us tonight, our Chief of Public Works, and a presentation by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. We thought it would be a good idea for the public to, just get an update where we're at, such a long-term project that affects Norwalk so deeply, not just the East Norwalk community, but all of Norwalk really, because it's such a heavily traveled area. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jim Freyer, our chair of Public Works Committee, to give us a little more information.
Thank you. It's probably more than 10 years ago. I looking back, it was about 2015 when we started hearing some noises about replacing the Walk Bridge. But today it's impossible not to notice the physical connection between South Norwalk and East Norwalk as it's gradually evolving. As we try to safely cross the Streffolino Bridge, or looking at enormous cranes, going through the underpass at Fort Point Street, wondering where you are now. And also looking at some of the construction in front of Betts Park and thinking, what does that possibly have to do with the bridge? It's just apparent that this is a real big deal. Last September, I had an opportunity to go up the river by boat and get a really up close look at what's going on there. And I can just tell you that the scale of the construction equipment, the immensity of the site is just mind-boggling. So when Barbara Smith asked that we might want to take a look at that, I jumped at it right away and said, got on the phone to Vanessa and said, listen, we got to get something to update the people in the city as well as the council, what's going on. So I'd like to just turn it over to Vanessa and the DOT representatives and go through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see everybody again. First, I want to say that what you said, Mr. Frager, is true. We have been involved with this project for at least about 10 years. A lot has been happening. A lot of things that has happened and is finished, a lot of people didn't notice because a lot was on the tracks, and I know DOT will be able to talk about it. But now the project is really at South Norwalk. As you cross the river, you can see a lot of changes as we move by. So DOT, I want to thank you them. As soon as I make that call, they right away was able to put this presentation. They always are willing to keep the public informative about what is going on. So I'm going to pass to the team. We have Gus Mello here. He's going to start the presentation, and then I'll take also any other questions related to the city with Bridge. Gus?
Could we confirm whether that individual is on as a panelist or not? Because it could be that they're not upgraded to a panelist.
No, they're panelists. They need to unmute themselves.
Hi Vanessa, this is Rory McGlasson from the Walkbridge program. I'm a public information manager for WSP, and myself and Stephanie, who you can see there, work explicitly on the Walkbridge program on behalf of the Connecticut Department of Transportation in terms of public outreach. I don't know if Gus has some technical difficulties, but we do have other representatives on the call tonight, RJ Lesso and Mark Strang. But until Gus gets his technical difficulties fixed, I can get us started, Vanessa. Can you see my screen?
Yes,
Yes.
we can definitely see your screen.
Okay.
So go ahead. So Rory, let me introduce you and Stephanie then. So Rory and Stephanie, they're WSP. The WSP is the consultant that is doing all the public outreach on behalf of the Walkbridge. So when you guys have any questions, any concerns, they are the ones that will go get the answer and get back to you. So they're really like the front face of the project. So again, I think that Gus, that is the project manager, has some issues, but we have some of the DOT members, the engineers on that. I know that Rory and Stephanie are very familiar with the project because they answer questions anytime. So I'm more than comfortable to let them go over the deck.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. And I know we only have 10 or 15 minutes, so we'll go through this as briefly as we can, or as long as it takes us. It's a really relatively small agenda. We'll go through Walkbridge and the connected projects, as most of you know. It's not just about the signature project in Sono. We have a lot of connected projects in East Norwalk that we'll discuss. As we alluded to earlier, yep, we are definitely into construction now on Walkbridge, and we'll talk about some of the progress that we've made. We'll go over the construction schedule that we have left for the project, right, for the next 5 years. And then, like I said, we'll talk about some of the East Norwalk projects, and then we'll answer some questions and we'll have some open discussion. Okay, so this map here gives you a really global overview of all of the projects that we have under the Walkbridge. Like I said, it's not just the signature replacement of the bridge itself. We have a whole host of projects up and down the New Haven line, some of which we've completed already. We have 3 replacement bridges in East Norwalk. We have roadway improvements on East Avenue and a whole other slew of different projects that have either started or will start soon in the neighborhoods. And this map here just gives you an overview the footprint of all of those projects.
Yeah, Roy, hey Roy, I'm
Oh,
actually
very
able
good.
to get on. I apologize, everybody. I don't know what happened with the link, but I'm here now. So yeah, I appreciate Roy for you jumping in there. Yeah, and I just like to thank everybody the opportunity to just be able to come on tonight and just talk about the project. We know we have a large impact in Norwalk, and we're going to be here for a couple of years. You know, generally speaking, here Walk Bridge, construction of this project started back, you know, in 2023. Really, you know, a lot of the work that we're doing now is below the ground. You know, very shortly here, where you're going to actually start seeing this come up out of the ground, and you're going to actually start seeing some really, you know, some of the steel and superstructure started being erected. Right now, the project is projected to be completed in 2030. So another 5 more years to go on the project. We're ready to go on the slide. Yeah, general footprint, you know, right now, for the Walk Bridge replacement, you know, right now our footprint is really on track from Washington Street all the way up to 4 Point. Currently, we're doing work which we call the Metro North Bypass, which we're basically building subsurface conduits, really submarine cable underneath the Norwalk River. Really, it's pretty impressive. We're drilling a micro tunnel about 50 feet below the riverbed, about 400 feet long. 2 of these tunnels, we've completed the north floor today, and we're starting progression on the south floor. And generally, this is the footprint we're occupying. I can get people back there for it real quick. So generally, we're occupying really, you know, the 4 quadrants of the bridge, directly adjacent to it. And then we also have there's another construction staging area that was occupied by Eversource further down on North Street. All right, next slide. So yeah, I'll just turn this over to Mark Strank here. He's one of the project engineers on the project, and just give you basically a quick overview of the current construction progress. Mark, if you're unable to speak, I guess I could take this. So overall, this is you know, general overview of the Walk Bridge site here. As you can see, we have cranes on 4 quadrants. Really, and here you can see, you know, we have in-water work. And then currently you can see the progress of the microtunnels. The next slide. And this is what I was talking about, the Metro North Bypass. As you can see here, this is really to bring over these overhead, basically traction power and communication cables off of the high towers and under the Norwalk River. You know, on the lower right-hand side there, that we call that a CCAM pit. That pit there goes down about 80 feet. And really, we're using a micro tunnel machine there to really drill out those 2 bores there to really be able to take those cables that are on the high towers underground and across the river. Next slide. This is a general view of what that looks like. As you can see, you know, it's pretty impressive. If anybody ever has it, you know, would like to come out there, you know, we can definitely arrange that. We've taken out other groups there, just kind of see some of this construction in action. It's pretty impressive stuff. It's just a plan view of that micro tunnel. Next slide. And here, just, you know, more pictures of that. You know, this on the left-hand side, this was a picture taken from down below in the tunnel looking up, and some more pictures of just basic construction early on. Here we have pictures of the drill shaft operation. That's really the big operation that's going on right now. For this drill shaft, we had to bring in basically what we called right in the middle of the screen, an oscillator. These are 12-foot diameter steel casings that goes all the way down to bedrock that are oscillated in. This was actually one of the largest oscillators in the country that was brought in from California for this operation. And they're out there since really midsummer of last year, and they kind of wrapped that work up late December of 24. Generally, you know, you see some the large steel cages being brought in. Those are really large reinforcement bars, number 18s, probably about 2 inches in diameter. really just mega construction type stuff. On the lower screen there, lower left, that's the new dock that we put in there for the Sheffield Island Ferry and the Maritime Center there. And we had to relocate them. We relocated them further down to a newer location. Built them a new parking lot, new basically an area there, a covered shelter for passengers. Overall, the general feedback we got from them is that, they're really liking the new location and they're hoping that they can actually stay there long term. Next slide. General construction timeline, here we are in 2025. We're basically working on the lift tower piers, the microtunnel bypass, and basically we finished construction of the main resuscitation area. 26, there we're gonna basically start the bridge abutments and span construction. One of the biggest operations we're gonna have at 26 is really the removal of the high towers. Those towers are 270 feet tall. Right now, Eversource is really wrapping up their bypass, and they should have all those new wires terminated and de-energized this spring, which will basically allow us to go in there and do that removal. And then we'll start the construction of the lift tower structure, and hopefully by the end of 26, we'll have that microtunnel completed, and we'll be able to basically take on those towers. 27 is really the first float-in period there. Basically we're allowed to go in there between November and April. That's the time of year that we're allowed to basically restrict the channel height there, close the bridge. We're going to basically bring the northern lift span in that's being pre-assembled at Marisa Island. They'll be coming in on barge and basically floated to the site and then slid into place. And then we'll also be demolishing this southern span. And then at that point, we'll basically be doing continued approach work. And 26 or 2028, because of that time of year, we'll be doing the second float in the southern lift pier. Basically float that in, and then in 2029, end of 29, early 30, we'll basically be doing cleanup work, site restoration. Next slide. And overall, this is, we just want to show you some renderings of basically what the new bridge will look like. Basically vertical lift bridge there. And we are going to be doing some site improvements there. There's going to be a path underneath the bridge and around it that allow the public there to get provided them with some trails there. Next, just another view of the bridge. Next slide, word. So overall, a big difference from what we currently have out there now. Next slide. Here it is the East Norwalk project. Overall, on East Norwalk, we're calling this the Time 2 project. So this is involves the replacement of two of bridges and superstructure replacements. We're doing a 4 Point Street Bridge, Osborne Ave, which would be a superstructure replacement, East Ave Bridge, along with basically reconstruction of the East Norwalk train station, and then superstructure replacement at Strawberry Hill. And overall, this project here is also following the same time frame as Walk Bridge, given the way that we have to maintain the railroad. Well, we have to do this in stage constructions. Anybody that's been out there, you can see the bridges have been pretty much cut in half, and we're removing half of the bridge, building that in place, and then we're looking at going to the other side. Next slide. In addition to, this is one of the projects that we've been out here probably for the longest. This is the Advanced Utility Project. This project here started back in 2021, where we came in and did all the advanced utility work, basically undergrounding all the utilities in East Ave between Winfield and Olmsted, really the I-95 on-ramp there. Pretty much all the utilities that you see overhead there are basically getting put underground. Picture here kind of shows you the network or the conduits there of all the different utilities. That project, we've had several construction delays due to a lot of obstructions and design changes that we had to do. Working in an urbanized environment there, it can be definitely a challenge. but we are on track to be wrapping up that project this fall. And hopefully, you know, I know we've fielded a lot of complaints from the public regarding the condition of the East Ave roadway. So as we, you know, get there in the fall, we will be, repaving that section roadway that's, you know, the roughest ones, that, you know, the community has complained mostly about. So we'll be really happy about that. I'm sure, everybody, you know, that travels in East Norwalk, we'll see that. And then overall, you know, once we're done with that, all those overhead, light poles, everything, that's gonna go away. And, we'll be doing, road reconstruction of East Ave there, basically from Fitch all the way looping around, Gregory Boulevard and the cemetery. Basically road widening, you know, basically, you know, fixing up East Ave now there, it goes between 2 lanes and there's a couple of little shifts and then gets restricted down to a lane in each direction of the bridge. So we're just gonna have a nice straight path, 2 lanes in each direction. Overall, it's gonna be a big change for East Norwalk and East Ave in that area. Next slide. Here are some pictures of what I was talking about with stage construction there. As you can see, you know, we're actively working at all 4 locations. This is what we call a supportive excavation or the phase line SOE. Basically, it's lagging and micropiles and lagging there. Basically, that's supporting the tracks there so that we can come in there and build half of the bridge, and then we would be flipping over the other side. On the lower right side, you see there the temporary platform that we constructed at East Ave Station. Currently, they're working there doing foundation there for the new platforms that we're going to basically be putting in there. You know, overall, it's going to be a big improvement for that station. Next slide. Yeah, so like I said, overall construction schedule, 2025. We're going to be wrapping up the advanced utility project. We're going to be working on the north side of East Ave Bridge, the East Ave train station, basically completing the northern platforms. And then we're going to continue with work at 4 Point Osborne and Strawberry Hill. And then we're hoping to be able to start construction of the East Ave Enhancement Project, which is most likely going to be happening right now, late fall. I hope to have that out to bid. 2026, at that point, will basically be completed with the northern half of all the bridges, and we'll be jumping to the southern half. We'll start basically doing demolition there of the southern platforms at East Ave's train station, working on some retaining walls, Osborne Ave, southern half, and then we'll be basically substantially complete at Strawberry Hill. 2027, we should be wrapping up construction of 4 Point Street Bridge, East Ave, and the East Ave train station. And then at that point, we'll basically, there'll be a gap in time. In 2028, we'll come back and we'll be basically infilling the existing 4 Point Bridge, because we are building the new bridge off the alignment so that we can basically shift the roadway there so that we can normalize that intersection underneath the roadway. Right now, it's you know, it's not an ideal alignment, so that can be greatly improved. Next slide. So, I mean, here just shows you some renderings of, you know, what's to come. This is the view of East Ave there, underneath the bridge. You will see we're gonna have sidewalks on either side there, vastly improving mobility for the pedestrians through that area. Currently, right now, there's only sidewalk on one side. You know, adding 2 lanes, bike path. Yeah, and overall, you know, 2 lanes in both directions. Next slide. Just another view of the station or of East Ave Bridge. This slide here is basically showing the new alignment of 4 Point Street Bridge. Basically, you're gonna have a nice 4-way intersection there with South Smith Street. And this is another view just basically showing the existing alignment, and then, you know, another rendering of the new realigned 4 Point Street. Next slide. This is a view of Osborne Ave after completed construction. Next slide. And then this is a view of basically East Ave train station This is the view of the northern platforms there, as you can see, basically new covered canopy, piston ride, improved parking. Overall, a better flow for the station and better, user experience overall. And this is just another view, basically showing there. One of the things we are doing, we are relocating the driveway of the train station so that it lines up with 4 Point Street there, adding signals and signalizing that intersection there. That is a very challenging location there. So with the addition of the signalization and realignment of the train station, it should improve traffic flow in that area. Next slide. And then overall here, this is where I just want to turn to Rory there. We do have a welcome center where, we have somebody there 5 days a week so that we can basically answer any questions from the public, set and basically do the outreach. I'll just turn to Rory, just kind of walk through some of the outreach that we're doing and how to keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gus. If you're not aware, we do have a dedicated website for the project. One of the good things about the website is it has a construction activities map where you can go online and you can find these projects that we just talked about and what's happening right now and in the future on those projects. We have an email address there, info@walkbridgect.com. I would definitely suggest that any of your constituents contact that email address anytime. As I alluded to earlier, myself and Stephanie are always on the other end of either the emails or there's a direct line there, 833 go to walk. Call us anytime. We monitor it all day and 24 hours. So if we get any inquiries or complaints, we contact that person right away. And we do have our social media handles on X, Facebook, and Instagram, where we update various things about the project on a daily basis. Vanessa, I'll send it back to you, but we'll gladly take any questions.
Thank you. So does anybody have any questions to either the Walkbridge program or to me?
Just, a few comments. Thank you so much, Rory and Gustavo and Vanessa for that presentation. It's such an impactful project and seeing the photographs of the work that's being done and how extraordinarily massive this project is. And when we drive down East Avenue and the frustration that we all feel, because it's such a long ongoing project, it's really encouraging to see what we'll have when it's completed. A world-class train station in East Norwalk, improved, transportation, that 4 Point Street Jag that we're so used to going under. I mean, it's beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. So, it gives us hope for the future that we'll get there.
Mr. Josiah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to second all the thanks. This is, I think, very helpful for folks to get an overview and really understand the scope and scale. I just wanted, if someone could speak briefly to what sounds like is coming up next, the demolition. How is all that material going to be shipped out, trucked out? How are we kind of getting all of that stuff off the bridge and out of the city? Given that I'm imagining these are some fairly large pieces, and also, quite frankly, some pretty old pieces with some pretty old stuff on them.
Yes, I can start on that. So what you guys are seeing, as I said, has been years of discussion. We are now on the easy part that is just the construction. We had years of planning, of arguing or asking for things that would be better for the city. So all the routes for the trucks has already been committed and approved by the city. And the good thing is that we understand that the city changed in this past few years. So some of the routes that we were thinking 10 years ago, we build a mall, and now the mall is on the way. So we are always doing this in direction to change. But the team, and I think that the city and Connecticut DOT we are both with the same goal, that we want this project to succeed and have the less impact to our residents. So that's what we are doing now. They have to follow all the permits related, because what took a long time for them to really start the walk bridge was the permit process. So they have to follow everything that their permit require them to do. So what we have the oversight was where we're gonna get all that trucking out. And as I said, a lot of things has happened already that people haven't even noticed. Now you start seeing more because we start going above the water and are things that you're gonna be physically notice. Because I don't know if you wanna add more related to your truck routes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are following the pre-designated truck routes that Vanessa outlined. And also to a lot of those large steel members, we are going to be basically putting them on barge and basically disposing of the materials that way. The large steel members that we're bringing in, most of them are being brought on barge, mostly the larger ones. There are some smaller members that are being trucked in, but everything's all within designated truck routes.
And then follow-up question, when do you anticipate construction beginning on the Manresa site?
So construction of the Manresa site started basically fall of last year, with basically establishing the laydown area there, really basically fencing and leveling out the site. Right now, we are expecting to start seeing the first steel members arrive at Manresa in November of this year. And at which point they will start the assembly process then.
Thank you.
Mr. Fair? Yeah, as in regards to the work that's going to be done in Manresa, are you going to be able to bring a lot of the materials in, the raw materials that you're going to need to put the elements of the bridge together by barge?
It's going to be a mix. It's really dependent on the size of the members. A lot of that material is going to be brought in via trucks. So we have gone out there with the contractor. We put the no J break signs up there. You know, we are constantly working with subcontractors coming in there, notifying them of those noise restrictions at that site. So right now, I mean, you know, we've had several outreach meetings with the Manresa Neighborhood Association there. Basically getting an overview of the project, hearing a lot of their concerns. Overall, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of daily shipment there. You know, we're basically expecting sporadic shipments of steel. And then as they're working, they're moving those materials out.
Would it not be, when we're talking about large shipments of steel, wouldn't it be beneficial to try to bring those in by sea rather than?
Correct. I mean, absolutely. You know, when it's appropriate, they'll be brought in by barge, and you know, other times they may be brought in by trucks.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So to those 2 points about the traffic and the trucks, and so is that main route going to be Woodward Avenue, South Main to Woodward Avenue, of course, right?
From Morrison Island, yes.
Yes. And so I think it might be beneficial to notify residents. I mean, I don't know how we can do that, but I think that should be something that we consider doing, and you probably have already considered that.
Right, so who does all that type of notification is WSP, that is Stephanie and Rory. So usually what happened, and Stephanie and Rory, please jump in as if I'm saying something wrong. As soon as they anticipate a major activity, they have, their job is to really do this outreach. So I don't know if you guys want to have a little more details on how you guys notify the residents after some major activities?
Yeah, absolutely. I can speak to that, Vanessa. So we have, I think Nora's on the council here, right? So we have a relationship with most of the HOAs. We've emailed the group directly and have given them updates on, you know, the fencing and some of the laydown preparation work. And then as things start to, you know, ramp up on Manresa Island, we'll have more meetings and we'll have more information that will go directly to the neighborhood group and the 5 leaders there who can help distribute that information to the residents.
All right.
Yeah, also too, in addition, we do hold monthly stakeholder meetings. So we do, we got an email list of the different stakeholders throughout Norwalk that we host this meeting, pretty much giving them an update on all the construction activities throughout East Ave, Manresa, Sono, different, giving a heads up on what we're looking at for lane closures, detours. So in addition to that, I mean, and also too, Rory and Steph, when we're in an area doing road closures, they're going door to door, knocking to the adjacent butters, giving out flyers and notices. So we do have an extensive outreach program trying to give as much advance notice to different stakeholders and impacted folks, basically just to generally create awareness.
Also, I just want to add to that, besides the information that goes out, the city between DPW, TMP and the program, we meet, I think we have 4 or 5 meetings a week, right, Gus? Is about that? In general, because we have separate for each project and then we have some others. So there is always 1 or 2 people from the city staff to those construction meetings. So we always know what is going on. And if there is anything major, they always give us a heads up before. And that's why I mentioned that some of those detours we have been adjusting because we know that what got approved not always work anymore. And one thing also, we also need to communicate all the time because of some of the activities that we are doing. So I'll give you an example with the half marathon, right? The half marathon on that weekend, a lot of their activities have to be planned around that. And if there is something new that the city decides to hold this year, we have to let them know because they have to hold the activities around. So besides, and then on those meetings, we are able to flag what can be some type of inconvenience. And then we ask the team also to emphasize the outreach on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been, working closely with Vanessa and her team and TMP. Basically, anytime we're doing anything that's impacting the road, we're communicating and even our lane closures, that we submit those to TMP for their review and comments. So, that we've developed throughout the years, given that we've been, the design phase has occurred so long and working construction, we've developed this good relationship with DPW, and we are coordinating closely.
That was helpful. And I just want us to just continue to be mindful of the fact that there's a new school going up in the area. We're talking about safe routes to school, and we just need to be mindful of that and making sure that residents know what to expect. And if we have to maneuver around that, we need to have that flexibility to do so.
That's true.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to follow up with that to say that, yes, thank you, Rory. I know that you have been engaged with the neighborhood associations right around Manresa. But, one of the issues that we have raised, and I think, Ms. Young is alluding to, is that there is not a neighborhood association, to the best of my knowledge, for the Woodward Avenue and South Main area. And I am very concerned that outreach there needs to be done by flyer. It needs to be done directly to those residents. Pardon?
Multilingual.
And multilingual. It's very important that it be in Spanish and that it be in Creole as well as in English. And I am concerned with the new school going in. I think there's going to be particularly, if you're looking at the October, November timeline, there's gonna be people who are, new walks to school, new routes to school. I think there's gonna be a lot of changes going on. I think TMP is working on a massive project to do a traffic circle there. So I think really explicit, particularly if you're bringing very large vehicles, I drive on that road every day and I can't even tell you, I watched a 18-wheeler, it was terrifying, to be perfectly honest. They were across sidewalks. They almost hit a car. It was really something. And I am very concerned that, there'll be really transparent communications, particularly if the trucks are gonna be going through at any time of day where there's kids walking morning or afternoon. So that parents really can be alert and prepared for that.
No, absolutely, and we appreciate the feedback. It's Lori, Stephanie, they're always available to, definitely meet with the city, kind of go over some of these concerns. And we can adapt our program to meet the community needs. I'll throw it out there if you'd like to have a sidebar conversation to kind of outline some of those, what are you thinking? And we can definitely take that back and try to implement that. This kind of communication is great because, you guys live here and you're way more familiar with what's going on than we might be. So what we can do to better improve our outreach and communication, we're open to that.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very grateful to hear what you said, because I think the points raised by my colleagues, council members Young and Nagelski Eichner, are really pertinent, especially as the construction ramps up. And while I obviously, I think any and all sidebar conversations are appreciated, I'm very encouraged to hear that city staff is involved in all these steps along the way, for the simple reason that, that we're all accountable to the residents of Norwalk, and to make sure that they are as best prepared as possible to deal with this. And while there will be a temporary inconvenience, I mean, there's no doubt, just looking at these design pictures of how spectacular this project's going to be. Two questions. One, I am curious, I know obviously there's a project coming up that's underway on Manresa Island itself, and a massive remediation effort that's going on there. I'm wondering if the construction itself is going to in any way delay, or there's a way for the sort of the two efforts to coexist side by side.
Yeah, so that is a great question. So currently right now, we are working with the Manresa Association to see if we can actually modify the laydown area to basically accommodate their future construction. We're trying to work with them to basically be able to help them keep that project moving along. I mean, we're in early conversation with that, but we are having those conversations with them, and we're looking to basically do whatever we can to assist.
Okay, and then second, I was curious, and maybe I missed it. I saw that the timeline you put up, I think on a few slides, had that the project termination date was in 2030. And if I remember, because I remember being at the groundbreaking a couple of years ago, the estimated project completion time is 2029. So I don't know if there's a reason why the timeline's been extended, or if that's something that encompasses the entire project and not just the actual, obviously the main feature of the Walk Bridge project being the Walk Bridge. But, and forgive me if I missed it, but I'm wondering
No,
why the
you're
timeline
correct.
was
So
pushed out.
2029, 2030. So that 2030 is really just the site restoration in the early spring. So the completion of the main bridge will be in 2029. And then really that, tail end 29, early 30 is really just the site restoration aspect of it.
Okay,
It's
so as I,
opening off the site and then, restoring all the laydown areas and all.
okay, and so just to make sure I'm clear on that, so the Walk Bridge itself will be available to commuters and will be usable by 2029.
Correct.
Okay,
And then right now, really, it's early spring, May of 2030, we're projecting to basically be completely wrapped up and have our presence out of there.
okay. Well, I really appreciate it, and I second my colleague, Council President Smith's comments about how just utterly transformative a project this is and is going to be, and how grateful we are to DOT's willingness to really work with us in making sure, being a partner with us in this effort every step of the way. Vanessa, thank you as always. We are so glad that you are a very active seat at the table here.
I just want to make a recommendation that you loop the superintendent in on the travel plans for the heavy equipment that's going to be going up and down Woodward Ave.
Right, and
Yeah,
also.
because they'll be able to notify parents very easily.
And also, the Board of Ed is one of the stakeholders that is part of those meetings as well.
Great.
As their query.
Mr. Burnett. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's several partners involved in this project, especially from a funding standpoint. And one being the federal government. Has there been any indication or concerns raised that funding might become a concern coming from the federal side?
No, there has not. Project is under construction. and fully funded.
I understand.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All the
Thank you.
funding has been secured.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And now we will move on to the consent calendar. Read by me. I'm up tonight. Okay. Item 7A1, Public Safety and General Government, authorize the purchasing agent Sharon Connors to issue a purchase order to the sole bidder, Brown Helicopter, Inc., 10100 Aileron Avenue, Pensacola, Florida, 32506, for the purchase of a refurbished Metal Shark 29 Vigilant, not to exceed $240,000. The 25% municipal grant match of $60,000 has been allocated for in the 2022-2023 capital budget, account number noted. 7B1, under Economic and Community Development, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a contract agreement with GL Capasso, Inc. in the amount of $1,735,827 for project NPA 2025-1, repairs and improvements at the Haviland Parking Garage, account number noted. 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a temporary construction easement right-of-way agreement between the city of Norwalk and Nia Leosa LLC for the construction of sidewalks at 26 Wall Street as part of TMP 2023-2 East Wall Street Landmark Square Safety, Accessibility, and Streetscape Improvement Project. Item 7C1, under Land Use and Building Management, elevator maintenance contract bid number 4421A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with TK Elevator Corp. For the elevator maintenance services at various city buildings. Agreement will be for 5 years, beginning July 1, 2025, for a total amount not to exceed $130,286.19. Funding is available in various building operating accounts for FY 2025, 2026, and subsequent years will be subject to availability of operating funds. B, consent to table back to committee. Authorize contingency allowance in the amount not to exceed $5,000 per year in the event building management takes on management of Lockwood Matthews Mansion Museum, as well as the Norwalk Community Recreation Center upon its completion. Again, consent to table back to committee. 2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a general gas service agreement with Eversource Energy for the Norwalk High School project for a term of 15 years and a 0 contribution amount. 3, boiler purchase approval for Rowayton Elementary School HVAC project. A, authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to FW Webb Company to purchase the boilers for the Rowayton Elementary School State Project 103-001 HVAC N in the amount of $109,840, funds available in account number noted. And B, authorize allowance for change order in an amount not to exceed $5,492, account number noted. 7D, Public Works, item 1, City of Norwalk and Grasso Companies LLC for project RD 2025-1, roadway paving and sidewalks for Flax Hill Road. A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the City of Norwalk and Grasso Companies LLC for project RD 2025-1, roadway paving and sidewalks for Flax Hill Road from Arbor Drive to Highland Avenue for a sum not to exceed $1,801,903.30, account numbers noted. B, authorize the Chief of Operations and Public Works to execute orders on the contract with Grasso Companies LLC for project RD 2025-1, roadway paving and sidewalks for Flax Hill Road from Arbor Drive to Highland Avenue for a sum not to exceed $180,190.33, account numbers noted. 2, authorize the purchasing agent to issue the purchase order for the First Amendment to the April 9, 2024 agreement between the City of Norwalk and Burns Construction Company, Inc. for project PM 2024-2, permanent roadway repairs and surface restoration for an amount not to exceed $400,000. account number noted. And 3, technical correction of the Common Council action of December 10, 2024. Item 7E6, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement between the city of Norwalk and Langen, Connecticut, Inc. to provide design, development, and construction administration services for a sum not to exceed $100,000 through sole source justification, account number noted. And that is the consent calendar. I will call for a vote. All in favor, as consent calendar is read, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? And that carries unanimously. Back to you, ma'am.
Thank you. That brings us to item 7B3, Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 7B3, approve the 2025-2026 capital budget. I'd like to move this item and speak briefly to it.
Been moved by Mr. Goldstein. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. So every year, the Common Council has the responsibility of approving and scrutinizing 2 different budgets, obviously the operating budget and the capital budget. This is the second of those 2. The capital budget is designed to fund long-term investments in Norwalk. And while there's a lot of discussion about numbers in abstract, it's really important that we, and as we've gone through line by line, every item in the capital budget, because there are a lot of really important projects that we budget for. Just a little bit about the capital budget process. This is a process that departments undergo, and it is a months-long process, starting with reviews internally in the city with the finance department, and then in addition with the mayor's office, as well as meetings with the Board of Estimate and Taxation and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and of course, us through the Economic Community Development Committee. So after hours and hours and hours of work, and I just want to first recognize, I want to recognize a few people before sort of getting into the substance. The first, obviously, is our Norwalk Finance Department led by Jared Schmidt, who's sitting over there. And he and his team have really done a truly excellent job this year at shepherding us through a process where there's a lot of uncertainty in the air, especially when it comes to financing at all levels, especially considering the turbulence at the federal level. And it's been really nice to have that level of stability and competence and a true guided hand. So Jared and your team, I'm so grateful for the work you've done in working to make sure that we can bring this capital budget forward today, and obviously the months that it took to do it. I also want to thank the members of the Board of Estimate and Taxation and the Planning and Zoning Commission for their work on this budget, as well as all of the city staff and departments who really labor hours. I mean, hours is actually an understatement. I mean, a ton of time in making their requests, working within the budget constraints to put forward an affordable capital budget, in which sometimes those requests are not granted in full. As you can see in the capital budget backup, not all of them are granted in full, and departments do as best as they can to live within our means and while doing so affordably, engineering projects that are going to truly benefit the residents of Norwalk. The Economic and Community Development the Economic and Community Development Committee met twice last week and spent 5.5 hours in total going through and meeting with every department and reviewing their capital budget applications line by line. I know it's 5.5 hours and that's a lot of video, but I promise you, if you are interested in our capital budget and what the projects we are investing in, it is worth your time, because there are so many important projects being worked on in the city, and it shows the dedicated staff and departments everywhere from the Board of Education to Transportation, Mobility, Parking, Community Services, and so on. As I said before, the capital budget, while there's a lot of discussion about sort of what the number is or what the total number of a budget is, I think it's really important to highlight a few of the items budgeted in this year's capital budget. So for example, there's money allocated for significant ADA improvements across City Hall. I know there was someone who commented in public comment about the importance of making sure that City Hall is accessible to everyone in Norwalk, no matter whether you have a disability or not. And here in this capital budget is almost $500,000 of capital budget of ADA improvements across City Hall that I think are really important. Additionally, $1 million in additional sidewalk improvements across the city. The replacement and expansion of the Norwalk Fire Department Station 4 on Westward Avenue, which is a project that members of this council have been working towards and advocating for years. The East Avenue Corridor Improvement Study in one of the most highly trafficked areas of the city. We want to figure out how to make it less of a traffic hotbed and make it more accessible to people. Replacements for banded string instruments in middle school lockers, and even a new 100-foot fire truck. I just want to note before I end what I said are brief remarks, which obviously aren't that brief. The project in Broad River, because I know it's gotten a lot of talk. I want to make it very clear, and this is something that came up at the Economic Community Development Committee, that while we are committed to putting in high quality fields and making sure that everything associated with drainage, runoff, what have you, is done in a safe and effective way, and I'm speaking for myself, and I know there are other members who agree with me, are not intending to support the implementation of turf fields. However, we want to make sure that the fields that are implemented are environmentally safe and are of high quality, because we want to make sure that students and people can use the fields for whatever recreation activities we want. We also want to make sure that runoff from those fields do not include the forever chemicals like PFAS and other chemicals that could pollute our Long Island Sound and damage important industries, not only the safety and well-being of our residents, but also important industries such as our oyster industry, which is obviously something we care deeply about. So while we are budgeting for these projects in the capital budget, these projects do come before the council again on their own individual basis, in which council members, as well as members of the public, will get to scrutinize those proposals and advocate. So while I just want to make sure, because I know there's been some talk about this particular project, budgeting it tonight and passing it into our capital budget does not mean that Norwalk is suddenly getting interrupted. So I just want to wrap up by saying again, how impressed I have been by staff in every city department throughout this process. And I also want to recognize the Department of Public Works, Vanessa Valadares and her team, because I know that department usually carries one of the highest loads of capital budget requests. And we had an extensive discussion last week about their requests and every department's requests. I am so grateful to be just a part in this particular process. I also want to thank the members of my committee for really spending the time and asking really important questions. And also council members who weren't on the committee, and many of whom stayed for the full 5.5 hours. I was so grateful for it. In particular, I know Nicole Eady and Wennerstrand, Nora Najelski-Eichner, all made this process better. And I think that as we work to make government not only even better at serving the public, but also making it so that we are acting in as efficient a way as possible. It's nice to know that we're all on the same team and that we all are dedicated to making sure that every dollar we spend is going to in a way that's going to improve Norwalk. And I have no doubt in my mind in saying that I think that this budget will do so, and that's why I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
We have our CFO here, if anybody has any questions or comments. No questions or comments? Oh, Miss.
I have no questions. I sat through those 5.5 hours and had my opportunity to ask questions. But I do just, and you know, thank you for such a thorough go over of the process and highlighting some of the projects. And so I'm not going to repeat everything that you said, but I do want to take a moment to thank the finance department. Thank you, Jared, because I would imagine you put in more hours than just about anybody. And the departments, I know that you were all asked to cut significantly this year from the capital budget. That's a tough ask. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for their very hard work. And I do want to just make a personal statement on the turf field for the Broad River project that, as Mr. Goldstein highlighted, this is what we're allocating is funding for the project, not for turf fields. And that is a vote that will come to the council later in the year. At the time, I know that in the past, I personally have supported turf fields. But since we have learned about the PFAS, the forever chemicals and the blades, I am against turf fields, particularly at this site where we have watershed. And as you pointed out, our oystering industry could be at risk and, as well as our drinking water. So it's a big concern. So I just wanted to, state that for myself.
Shanahan.
Well, just to echo the same comments of Josh and Barbara in that regard. Certainly council person C can speak with more authority as to the state of our drinking water wells and the risk posed by artificial fields that can contain PFAS. So I'm not going to repeat the comments that both of you made, but I do want to say as an athlete myself and a parent of 2 student athletes, I know that we need more fields in Norwalk. And I applaud Mr. Stowers and our Rec and Parks Department for trying to maximize the number of fields across the city. It's really important. But also as a mother, knowing the dangers that these artificial fields pose to the health and the safe play for these student athletes, I cannot support the artificial turf fields for anyone's children. So I really appreciate the opportunity just to say that and to continue the conversation with Mr. Stowers about maximizing the number of fields and doing the best we can with green turfs. So thank you.
Mr. C.
Yeah, so with these forever chemicals, Raw River is really an important project and I'm voting in favor of it because of the project. But right down the street is our well field. And we actually haven't used one of our wells for the past 5 or 6 years because we found PFAS. We were actually one of the first people in Connecticut to start doing or one of the first water districts to start doing testing here in Norwalk and publicizing it. So we shut down the well field one well because it was prominent with PFAS. It definitely is impactful on the health, but we like to talk about numbers. It's really expensive to get rid of PFAS once it's in the water. It's going to cost the people in Norwalk millions of dollars to upgrade the water treatment plants so that it can effectively get rid of PFAS. That's something that we have to do whether we have turf or not, but we shouldn't be adding to the problem by having turf fields. So I'm definitely not in favor of turf fields, but I am in support of this project as long as we do it right. Another thing I want to make is just that in this capital budget plan, we had a lot of projects that are really important. And I really appreciate the time that the BNT has put in, and they always do a great job. And actually two of my favorite council members where I really respect their input had their time and the BNT. And I really appreciate the way they dissect the budget and really look at the numbers and go through it. So I do appreciate the recommendation and their awareness of the potential of borrowing too much money. However, the backside of that is that there's certain projects like the fire department, like the fire truck, that in other projects that we keep pushing down the road and it just gets more expensive. So we can not do it, but we had a long period of time and we weren't investing in our infrastructure. We weren't investing in our buildings. So now we have to. So I really support this budget. I think that we are going to have to go on a debt diet soon. But I think that this year, this is really full of needs that we need for our city. So I'm really supporting the budget and definitely excited to have the conversation about PFAS going forward.
Further comment, Ms. Josie.
Thank you. And I certainly join my colleagues on the turf field point, but don't need to reiterate that. I want to talk about a number of other things in the budget. And in particular, I want to really thank Mr. Goldstein. I think that the Economic and Community Development Committee was really terrific to have the time and space to go in depth. And I really do urge people who have any questions about the projects to look there and get more information. But I wanted to highlight a couple of things that I think are really important in this capital budget. And I want to start with thanking our CFO for a really important change that is in process and is denoted in this budget. So we are moving a number of maintenance items out of the capital budget and into the operating budget. And this seems highly technical, but I think it's worth highlighting because it really speaks to a fundamental weakness, I think, that the city has dealt with over several decades. This is no knock on, I think, anyone sitting in this room, but the city has underinvested in its maintenance over the last several decades, and has led to situations where we have school buildings with leaking roofs and a lot of deterioration that is the product of years and decades, quite frankly, of neglect. And so moving these regular maintenance expenses into the into the operating budget, so that it is clear that these are things that will happen every year, that we are every year making the best use of our existing buildings to make sure that they're maintained as well as possible, so that we hopefully save ourselves long-term expenses and the need to completely replace buildings that are deteriorated beyond their useful life. I think is a really great gesture in the right direction, and I'm very pleased with the ways in which I think that will make it easier for residents to understand what it costs us to maintain our buildings. And the dangers that come from not spending that regularly. And so I wanted to start with that, and then also similarly talk about a number of projects in this capital budget that are bringing to completion long-term projects. And I spent quite a lot of time looking at this budget with the question of sort of, were there things that we should amend? Were there things that we could push off? And I'll flag, for instance, a number of the Historical Society or Historical Commission projects that are finally moving to culmination on years of work. So we are reaching the end of the Lockwood Matthews Mansion. There's a little bit of money that's needed to get over the finish line. The jailhouse project has been invested in over years, and we need a little bit of money to get it over the finish line. The Historical Museum similarly. And I think that there is a lot in this budget that is intended to sort of wrap up ongoing projects. And I think that is very important for us to then be prepared for some questions of belt tightening in the future. It makes very little sense to invest 3/4 of the way in a project and then fail to complete it. And that, again, is a case of sort of penny wise and pound foolish. We don't want to have invested and then have the work be incomplete. And so I think that there are, I didn't see a lot of new projects in this budget. I saw a lot of finishing sort of work in progress. And I think to me, that was very satisfying again, giving us then an opportunity to consider for next year and the years after, kind of where we want to invest and kick off new work. To that point, though, one of the very important new projects is the fire station. I'm very grateful that that is moving forward. It's something that I spoke a lot about last year, and I'm really relieved to see that project in process. And I do think that that is part of another conversation to be had in the city, which is sort of the challenges of our non-school buildings. So I think the city has come to terms with the fact that our school buildings are reaching the end of their usable life, and we have a 25-year plan for working there. I think that we are now grappling with similar issues on the city side that, again, I think it's important for the residents to really realize, we're looking at probably a 20-year plus replacement plan for a lot of our fire and other maintenance and operational buildings. I also did want to acknowledge the importance of some of the ADA work. I had raised questions last year about whether some of the ADA lines were duplicative because they were appearing in a number of different places. I really appreciate this year's clarification from the staff that separate ADA lines are addressing separate projects. And again, in particular with the City Hall, really helping bring to completion a work in progress. And I'm excited to see that, sort of finally complete, and hopefully the concert hall will be a finished project before next year's capital budget. And so we can really move on with that. So the last thing that I wanted to address is sort of a big picture question about the school construction. And I think that we are all very aware that these have been massive undertakings. They are incredibly important undertakings. I am so excited to see the Southland Works School open this year. But we do have a number of lines in this year's capital budget that are directed at sort of tiding us over. So the new roof or the patching of the roof at West Rocks, air conditioning and asbestos abatement at Wolf Pit. These are schools that are in line in the long term for substantial replacement. But we are in a place and position where they are not usable as is without making these investments. And that is something that I think is really hard and very challenging. It is frustrating to have to make major repairs on something that we are hoping to essentially tear down and replace in the not too distant future. That said, the buildings have to be usable for the students. We cannot allow them to be in unacceptable conditions. And I think that this is a conversation, it is tricky for the council. We approve projects, but we do not have control over the school district budgets, as we've all talked about. We cannot make decisions about how they operate. But I, for instance, see a capacity in the elementary schools, particularly with this new South Norwalk school, that I hope that the school board will think creatively about using that capacity. The efficiency study has flagged for us that, where we have excess in the school system is really in the elementary schools. And it is tricky because we have a little bit of extra here and a little bit of extra there. And I'm gonna hit a third rail here. I think that it may be very necessary for the school district to consider a redistricting and really thinking about whether we are distributing our students equally across the city, whether we should be paying for busing students in between schools in order to sort of even out populations, when truthfully we might be better off with a wholesale look at the spread of students across those buildings, with the hopes that in doing so, we can potentially reduce our elementary school footprint once the South Norwalk School is online. So I think there are hard conversations to come, and I just really want to sort of flag that now, because these are going to be issues that I think we will have to be grappling with next year and the year after. And I think it's important for parents and residents to really have some sense of the kinds of things we're thinking about when we're looking at what it means to have school districts building needs that range realistically in the $500 million in the coming few years, maybe more than that, even with the school or even with the state funds. It is going to require creativity to be able to accomplish those kind of things while also not driving ourselves past our debt limit. And I think we're going to be asking for a lot of flexibility from parents, from residents, from the school board and the school system to maybe find solutions that are less than perfect, but get us in the long run to more buildings that are safe for our students at a cost that we can better afford. So I know that was a very long comment, but I really want to say that it's I thought very seriously about making an amendment to the capital budget to remove a couple of these projects that I do feel like are likely to be overtaken in a few years. But I've spent some time talking to the superintendent and others and really understanding our students cannot occupy these buildings without these these large scale maintenance projects being undertaken. And so I think we have to go ahead with it. But I hope that as we move forward, we can find ways to, manage our schedule to do less kind of temporary fixes and more just really grappling with the problem, even if that requires some uncomfortable adjustments temporarily to get there.
Any further discussion? Mr. Frayer.
I'll try to limit my time.
Sorry, I did not. I apologize.
No, it was, everything you said was spot on. I'd just like to say that the BET does a very thorough job in vetting the operating and capital budgets. Having gone through it a couple of times myself. Although I think the city's finance team led by Jarrett Schmidt does the heavy lifting in the exercise of analyzing each and every department's spending and budgets for the coming year. It's a thankless job given the pressure on trying to keep expenses low, but I think they do a fine job. On the capital side, the pressure is even more intense. The city has an excellent credit rating. It has a significant fund balance, our rainy day fund. That would suggest that we can afford to borrow to pay for infrastructure and other capital projects that everyone believes is good for the city. The reality is that it takes hard work and discipline to maintain our credit rating. A good credit rating is not an invitation to spend more money. Rating agencies look very closely at what our total debt is. This budget that we're asked to approve today brings brings us close to our total capacity of $650 million that the city is that the credit rating agencies look as the limit that we should be borrowing. So we're coming close to that. We're assured by the credit agencies and consultants that we've engaged that will not be jeopardizing our AAA rating, which is good. But I think as we approve this budget, and I am in favor of approving this capital budget. But I think as my colleague, Mr. Sneed has said, maybe it's time for a debt diet. And it's very easy to put that, it's always, and I know for a fact, it's easy to put a diet off till tomorrow. We don't have to start today. But I think that authorizing the spending during the year, because we have projects in there that are approved, doesn't mean that we necessarily have to authorize the spending against those items that are in that budget. Just as we mentioned with the Broad River fields, it's because it's in the budget doesn't mean that we have to spend the money on a synthetic field, which I personally disagree with 100%. So I think it's time for the council to be aware. We cannot continue to just authorize what's in the budget. As we go through this year, I think the council has got to be very vigilant about the impacts of the economic chaos that I expect we'll see during the rest of the year. We have the ability to control what that spending is during the course of the year. So I just implore you that as we authorize these various items that are in our budget, that we think hard and fast about what the impact is going to be with our credit rating in the future. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Further discussion, comment? Seeing that, I'd just like to make a comment also and thank Jared and Tom Ellis and Agnes Conway for their hard work. Members of the BET, I know that being on the BET, we spend many hours, many nights going over each individual item, interviewing and talking about the projects with the department heads, having them justify why they need to spend this money. I know it's been said that maintenance is critical, and it is. And I don't think we'd find ourselves in this position if over the years, everything had been taken care of the way it should be. We built the first school in over 50 years in the city of Norwalk. Buildings have an expected life of 50 years. Some of these schools are much older than that. And we find ourselves in a position of kicking the can down the road a little further and making it even more expensive, or getting the job done now. I think the public wants this council to get the job done as quickly as we can, as inexpensively as we can. We have Alan Lowe, who's a wonderful facilities manager who value engineers, does all kinds of different things, trying to just keep the prices low. And I thank Senator Duff for an 80% reimbursement on the new Norwalk High School. And if you haven't seen it, Norwalk High School is out of the ground now. The steel is being put up for 60% reimbursement on every other school building for the next 25 years. That's going to save millions and millions and millions of dollars for the city of Norwalk residents. So again, it's a thorough job. I'm very pleased with what everybody has done and how it's been done. It's also with the operating budget line by line by line. And we bring in the department heads and make them justify why they need this money. And in spite of all that, in past years, we've been able to keep the tax base down quite low. And I think that's something of which we can all be proud of. So again, thank you, everybody on the council. Thank you to BET. Thank you, department heads, and certainly our chief financial officer and his staff for all they've done. And I'll thank Vanessa too. She's here, so. So with that, I will take a vote. All in favor of item 7B3? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. 99. It's 9:04. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? I didn't think we'd have anybody opposed to adjourn. 9:04. We are adjourned.
Aye.